What's happening, people? Welcome to this episode of Everything 9000. What's happening, Amrit? What's happening, Ishan?
Yo.
Are you okay there?
I'm alright. I'd sneeze and that.
Okay.
I'm alright.
Yeah, today we're going to be talking about cancel culture. I think we see a lot more of it now. It's become a thing, especially, when celebrities or known figures, but we're going to leave him to it.
Yeah, I think we'll cancel him up.
Yeah, you're cancelled. A lot of people get cancelled now. There's a sort of a culture brewing. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Let's dive into it. Let's see where we stand with this. It's just something recently got me thinking. Even when Drake album came out recently, he credited R. Kelly on one of his tracks. It made news headlines. Why has he credited a paedophile? I know the charges haven't been confirmed against him, but there's been documentaries made of loads of girls coming out and saying he did inappropriate things with me.
I haven't seen that documentary R. Kelly one. It was meant to be quite powerful. I didn't see it though. Have any of you seen it?
I watched bits. I watched it. It was actually a hard watch. It's
to
not
be honest,
easy.
I was never into R. Kelly, so it never concerned me.
He has those tracks, like Ignition, etc. That
okay.
Those classics that everyone just knows.
Yes, obviously he was quite a huge name. I always knew who he was, but I just never kind of listened to any of his songs or something. So I never watched it. But in similar vein, when you look at people who, I was gonna say to you, do you think you can be too big to be cancelled at some times?
Yeah,
not at all.
I think so.
No.
How can you cancel Michael Jackson, bruv?
Well,
obviously
he's dead now, so it's different. But
still.
I can give you an example.
No,
look, I can give you an example. Yeah. I'll give you an example of Kevin Hart.
Okay.
So when he was about to host the Oscars.
Oh, that was a huge thing.
A load of people came out and dug up old tweets of him being, homophobic. And
he lost the gig though, didn't he?
Well, do you know what? The Oscars, they wanted Kevin Hart to apologize again, and Kevin Hart took a stand and he said, "Look, this was something that I apologized for in the past. I've evolved as a person since. I don't appreciate people just trying to find anything and harm my career. So I'm not going to apologize again." He took the stance. He's already apologized for it. He's already grown. He's already said, "I'm past this as a person," and so he didn't take the Oscars role.
Yeah. But can you get past it though? Sometimes, some people are stuck in their ways, for example, right? And do you think if a person recognizes what they've done wrong in the past and they've atoned,
if we don't believe in people growing, then what's the point in anything?
I guess so, but
what's the point of the rehabilitation system? What's the point of the whole jail system?
No, but how much of that apology is genuine and how much of that apology is to protect his career?
You're telling me remorse doesn't exist?
Remorse exists, but can it exist with these people, for example? Do you really think behind the doors is not being homophobic and stuff, and behind the scenes and stuff?
I think sometimes you say something and your upbringing and your surroundings they ingrain certain things into you.
No, I agree
when
with
we were in school, it was a common thing to say, "Oh, that's gay."
Oh yeah, I agree with that. And we've all said things in the past that we regret now. We're always evolving, obviously. So I get that point. But sometimes I just feel like I don't like Kevin Hart.
Look at Mike Tyson. He went through a lot when he was younger. He was cancelled. But if you listen to him now, he's always on podcasts. Mike Tyson, when you jumping on this? Anyway, he's always on podcasts and he's he's woke now. He's a different person.
Well, I think Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson is just a changed person. You could just tell from the 20-year-old that he was.
He talks about he didn't even like who he was.
Exactly, but Amrit, why can't that be anyone else? For example, when Chris Brown beat up Rihanna, that was before all this. Yeah, but it was before this.
Was he
social
actually
media?
Was Chris Brown cancelled? I don't think it was cancelled.
No, but the thing is, if that happened now,
he was.
But look at him now.
Rihanna's massive.
No, Rihanna's massive, but
you're right though. I get your point. People still listen to his music.
Exactly.
People still,
But you know what? That was
him.
He made so many.
Was this in 2008 or 2010 or something like that?
Yeah, I remember being in school.
Yeah, and to be honest, do you think if that happened now, 10 years later with the social media and stuff, I think
in today's cancel culture, it would be a lot worse.
It would be a lot worse, but I think he kind of got away with it though, to be honest, because he's still releasing music. I'm not saying that he shouldn't be releasing music and stuff, but what I mean is he's still got his fan base. I mean, people talk about what happened in the past, and his fans will defend that, but like, no, this didn't happen, or like, oh no, she could be lying and stuff.
He spent so many songs apologizing on that on songs. Like,
has he?
Mate, you know, I don't know if you guys remember, but Chipmunk and Chris Brown had a song called Champion, and Chris Brown literally rapped about, you know, is this the definition of me now because I used to see my mother get beat down. And Chipmunk actually done an interview afterwards and said, I don't understand how many times one individual can keep apologizing about the same thing. And I think that is quite similar to what Aman just mentioned about Kevin Hart. You know, I feel that, like, look, man, people make mistakes. In the society that we live in today, some mistakes are seen as big enough for you to get cancelled. Nevertheless, I feel like as individuals, people have an opportunity to grow. No. I feel like there are certain levels that maybe people shouldn't go past.
I get Amrit's point too, because, you know, DaBaby, he was at a concert. I don't know if you know this, Amrit. I know Ishan knows this. He was at a concert, and, you know, he sort of, you know how rappers, they, you know, between songs, to start addressing the crowd. He started addressing the crowd, and he started mentioning, shout out all my fans. I don't know, unless you got HIV and AIDS, and he started spreading misinformation, like you'll die within 2-3 weeks and stuff. And he made some homophobic comments as well.
But I think that's dumb.
And since then, you know, Dua Lipa, who had a really big track with him, she came out saying, I'm horrified by these comments. And like a lot of Dua Lipa fans like cancelled him. A lot of fans in general cancelled DaBaby. Shows stopped taking him on. He lost a lot of business from that.
Yeah, but I think, you know, when somebody's like outwardly like homophobic like that, that's different. But
he has come out and part apologised, part not apologised.
I mean, see, like, if it's a part
people
apology,
are convinced.
If you're not convinced by the apology, then you know it's just to
save his career.
Yeah, to save his
career.
So
I get your point there.
You know,
but then I get what Ishan's saying as well, as in, like, there are certain degrees of, like, you know, if I don't want to say this, but like there are certain things that people can do that, you know, there's no coming back from them. For example, you look at Jimmy Savile.
There's levels.
I don't want to say the word levels because...
So, like, for instance, Kanye wearing a MAGA hat. You know, for some people, he was cancelled. Or, you know, saying slavery was a choice.
I mean, saying slavery was a choice was a big thing. I think, but that's just, like, I think Kanye aside, because he's just a bit nuts in it. Like, he wanted that attention, right? He was there, he was lapped up with, you know, Donald Trump and stuff. And he said these things, he's wearing a MAGA hat and whatever, right? Okay, but what I mean is, like, obviously it's different to, for example, you know, in the UK, we had Jimmy Savile, right? I mean, he was a pedophile. And it was covered up for so long, even by the BBC, and then it came out after he died, right? Imagine if it came out when he was still here, he would have been in prison, right? And that there was no coming back from that. You know, you would hope at least. Then you look at Hollywood, for example, Harvey Weinstein, he's been now jailed for rape, and there's actually more cases against him. You know, he tried coming out.
Well, this is the thing, the Me Too movement.
Yeah.
It you know, amazing. You know, it's brought a lot of courage, you know, especially for girls and women out there to, you know, to stand up to this bullshit. Is the other side of it, you know, where it starts affecting cancel culture, and, you know, it's these levels, isn't it? It's like
these levels, but
where do you draw the line?
Would you want Harvey Weinstein back on the streets, saying like he has to, you know, he gets back in that position of power where he controls so much? He basically was the most powerful man in Hollywood, right? At one point, he was the most powerful man in Hollywood, right? All of his films went up for Oscars, all sorts of awards and stuff. Like, actors made their careers by basically him producing them, right? So he had so much power, and he abused that, right? And then there's no way that you can take him back. And everybody around that, you know, his brother, everybody working with him, his assistants, everybody knew what was going on, but not a single one of them like spoke out publicly until that article that came out, which kind of like then snowballed into the whole Me Too movement. But then you look at other actors as well, like Kevin Spacey. Did you guys hear about him? I don't think he's going to get work again.
I know. Do you know what? It's a shame because, you know...
it's a shame. He's a brilliant actor.
The whole season, was it 5 of House of Cards, was changed?
It was changed, but there was also another film where they'd actually finished filming and it was ready to be released, but then they reshot it with a different actor because they wanted him out, basically. They couldn't have him. And he was like accused of raping men, basically, while he was, you know, working on films and stuff. So those people are not coming back. I mean, people like Kanye and stuff, they're not going to be kind of cancelled over wearing a MAGA hat. So Kanye hasn't said something too outrageous. I mean, saying that slavery was an option, I think...
And he supported Bill Cosby, wasn't it? Or
Oh yeah, he did that too. That was despicable, man. Honestly, those people like Bill Cosby, I think those people went too far over the line. Like they're never coming back, and that's for a good thing. But people like Chris Brown and stuff, who've come out and apologized, they're kind of making an entrance back into society.
I think obviously we've touched on people being cancelled on quite a different type of platforms. Although they're all famous, we talked about actors, rappers and everything. I just think that, while you guys were speaking quite a bit, I just happened to think that, about 20 years ago when hip hop was in its, or even 30 years ago now, where hip hop was in its gangster rap generation, people like 50 Cent, The Game, Snoop Dogg, I'm sure that like homophobic comments were just the norm. I'm not saying that's a good or bad thing.
Even misogyny, it's just intertwined with rap.
Yeah. So I'm like, imagine
but that was in back then though, like nobody was going to call out like 50 Cent or Eminem, for example. Eminem was a prominent example, right? He was huge, wasn't he? But he was always homophobic, he was always like misogynistic in his tracks as well, and people actually enjoyed that as well.
Even Tyler the Creator, I remember going to a Tyler the Creator concert in London like about 8 years ago or something, and he was calling like so many people in the crowd like faggots and stuff. And the truth is, as a huge Odd Future fan back then, and I still am, hearing Tyler say the word faggot is the first time I'd heard the word. And I never actually knew what it actually meant. I never knew it was a homophobic term until like a year later, until I said the word and someone was like, that's homophobic. I was like, shit, I didn't know that. So, and the thing is, people like Tyler the Creator, he's been through a lot of shit, regarding all of his homophobic slurs and everything. He's come out to say that, he's completely not homophobic and stuff, but this is about nearly 10 years ago now. Maybe Tyler the Creator in today's environment would be cancelled.
What about Cristiano Ronaldo?
Yeah, I was gonna get onto Cristiano Ronaldo. Like, so obviously Cristiano Ronaldo is the biggest athlete in the world, right? Or if not one of the biggest.
He's the biggest athlete. If we're talking athletes, he's the biggest.
Yeah, and then like there's obviously huge controversy. You know what? It's actually been buried by the media too, but it's not spoken about enough. I mean, going back a few years now, this came out in 2017 or 2018. But what's the name of that German paper? Is it Der Spiegel or something like that?
Yeah.
They're quite big on like leaking
football leaks.
Yeah, football leaks, for example, right? Yeah. And they had basically ran an article called Cristiano Ronaldo's Secret. And in that, it kind of detailed how he was, in fact, like, there was a rape charge against him.
It was an allegation.
Yeah. Well, it was more than an allegation, actually. So what happened was there was this girl called Catherine Marioga, Mayoga, I think her name was, right? And they had met. This was when he was, I think, at Real Madrid, but this was in 2009 or something. He was about 24 years old. So he must have been actually Manchester United. He was on holiday with his brother-in-law and cousin in LA in a club, met this girl, right? They're kind of like chatting away the whole night, and then so he takes this girl back to the room to the hotel. And according to the article, what she actually had said was what happened was that he kind of like talked her into having sex, and she was kind of like, she wasn't willing to do it and stuff, but he kind of like talked her into it. Kind of like she said then afterwards, he kind of like, I didn't want to do this. He kept like, he kind of like pushed himself onto her, like to the point where she felt she couldn't say no or something like that. She couldn't really push him off, for example, right? Yeah. And he left, and the next day she went to the police, right? And she reported this, and she went like, I think there's this thing called like a rape kit where you do a test, right? Okay. And it found that, there had been penetration and stuff. So at that time, the police, I think, did investigate, or there wasn't enough evidence. But what had happened was then she instructed like a lawyer, and they sent a letter or a questionnaire to Ronaldo asking him about what happened. So they sent like a questionnaire to Ronaldo, his brother-in-law, and his cousin. And they had sent 2 or 3 different ones. And what was like the most significant thing was there was a question which asked, at any point, did she scream or did she say stop? And in one of the questionnaires, in one of the responses, Ronaldo said, yeah, she did. Actually, she didn't want to do this, right? And she kept saying stop, and he carried on anyway. And then there was this same question again asked in December 2010 or something. It was like, and he said, oh no, she hadn't. There was no like resistance from it. It was all consensual. And then what happened was then like they then signed an NDA, non-disclosure agreement, and he paid us $375K in US dollars, and it was all shot. And then the Me Too movement happened. You know, the Der Spiegel picked up this document and stuff. She had actually written a 6-page letter to Ronaldo after the incident, explaining what he did and how it impacted her and stuff, right? Yeah, so they got this letter and they published details of it, and then all of a sudden it came out again, and then Ronaldo had to go on Twitter and say, look, you know, our family against like rape and stuff. This is everything I believe. You know, it's against everything I believe in. But it didn't really get the media traction that it probably should have got.
Because he's Ronaldo.
Because he's Ronaldo. You know, there was even a point, they then, you know, the lawyers for the Catherine, they tried to argue the NDA was actually, you know, they tried to avoid it because they were saying she was in a different state mentally at that point. But even when I think Ronaldo acknowledged the fact that he apologized at the end of it, you know, so after he kind of like had intercourse with her, he apologized to her for what he did. He admitted that, right? It's in the papers as well. But he's kind of seemed to have gotten away with it. In fact, it was interesting. There was, you know, there's an international friendly tournament in pre-seasons. It happens in Las Vegas. It happens in America, but Juventus basically didn't take part because they genuinely thought Ronaldo would get detained or he would get arrested there. Wow. This was in 2019 or 2018, I think. But he's kind of gotten away with it. Nobody spoke about, you know, he's just had this whole huge transfer to Manchester United. People like, you know, he's coming back home and stuff. But nobody has actually spoken about what this woman's gone through. You know, when
you're right, because, you know, we've seen it with the likes of
Harvey
Messi,
Weinstein, like
Alexis Sanchez, you know, these footballers.
Yeah.
They've been, you know, a lot of tax fraud. They've
I think, you know what, yeah, tax fraud is like not obviously as serious as something like...
No, but the point being, you know, they've had... There's a rule, I think, in Spain that, you know, if your sentence is lower than 2 years, then you don't have to actually...
do it.
Yeah, you don't have to do it. You can just pay.
Yeah.
And so... That's what I mean. Footballers get away with that, but you probably wouldn't. You know, the same. I don't think the same rules apply in England. But this is what I mean. People who, you know, who have this influence and stature. You're right. They do get, you know. But
in terms of cancel culture, do you think Ronaldo can be cancelled? Given what I just told you.
Now that he's coming to the end of his career, maybe.
I don't. You know what?
Again, you know, if he's 36 now. You know, you'd think if he did something now, maybe it wouldn't be as much of a loss to football. But at that time, when Messi and Ronaldo were the two human beings
25,
on the planet,
you know, he wasn't even at his peak at 25, Ronaldo, right? You know, his peak was...
he just won the Ballon d'Or.
He won the Ballon d'Or, but
which means you're the best player on the planet.
No, you're the best on the planet, but like... He wasn't scoring the number of goals.
He wasn't a god.
Yeah.
Like he is now.
Yeah, like he peaked...
like he's made out to be.
Yeah, he peaked in like nearing his 30s, didn't he? But so we would have missed all that if he was cancelled. But do you not take that as a bargain? Like, do you say, well, you shouldn't have cancelled him at that point? I mean, it's not necessarily like not letting him play football. Like, you know, obviously with Benjamin Mendy now, you know what happened with him. He's actually detained and like, you know,
Adam Johnson, remember him?
Oh yeah, Adam Johnson was another one. You know, these City players, man, Jesus. But with Ronaldo, I don't know, man. You've got to... I still don't... Like, there was a lot of comment... You know, when his Manchester transfer was announced, like, there were a lot of people leaving comments in the, you know, the Sky Sports, tweeting Sky Sports saying, well, you know, why aren't you mentioning this happened? And they, you know, actually, you could see on screenshots and stuff, people, like, print screened it. They were hiding those comments.
Really?
Yeah.
Right. No, it's interesting. It's interesting. You're right. Nobody is.
So are you going to be... Okay, so are you going to be celebrating that Ronaldo goal when he scores for United?
I mean, you probably will.
Yeah, but
you will.
You're asking these geared questions to make me look bad, baby. You know, can I answer anything?
Listen, would you react softly to this had he gone to City? You would have been on it. Yeah, Ronaldo's a twat.
He just doesn't want to miss an opportunity. But
I don't think it works like that. I feel like when people see Ronaldo score, they see Ronaldo.
You know, Ronaldo genuinely has like
this, then.
People are mad about him. People run onto stadiums. People like travel thousands of miles just to catch a glimpse of that guy. You know, he peaked to a lot of people. Most of Portugal, he's a god.
Michael Jackson was a god like that.
Oh yeah, you know what? Let's get into Michael Jackson.
Michael Jackson sold out 50 shows at the O2 and then died. But like, you know, he's had allegations his whole life.
Yeah.
Michael Jackson when you're talking about too big to be cancelled, like Michael Jackson, I believe if he was still alive, and that firstly that documentary wouldn't have come out. But if it did, he was like untouchable.
He was untouchable. I think
he was.
That's the sad reality.
That's
you know
level.
That documentary is fucking like, it's harrowing. You know, listen to the experience of those people. They were kids, and Michael Jackson's a weird one. I actually know a couple of friends who are like huge Michael Jackson fans, and you know what? They refuse to acknowledge that.
And I watched a really interesting.
And it's not even like these people are lunatics or anything. They're like regular people. It's not like they're right wing, conspiracy theorists, but they literally refuse to let that affect their admiration or like their love for Michael Jackson. I know 2 people actually. When
Michael Jackson died, we had an assembly about it at school.
I remember when he died. Actually, I was in year 10. I was on work experience, and it just came out. Michael Jackson died, but I didn't know about these allegations back then. I was too young, but I only learned about them afterwards.
He's had him his whole life.
He's had him his whole life, but
allegations.
You know what? He was still managing to like carry on as if like it was nothing.
Yeah.
And what was fucked was like when you look at it, there were so many of these weird allegations and stuff. He'd invite kids over to what was the thing called where he'd
Neverland
and stuff, right? And parents would just send their kids with him there, man.
Would you know? It's interesting. Obviously, we're talking a lot about celebrities and people that have this status and power. So then maybe cancel culture should exist, so that the people who it's because of the fans and all of these the supporters that these people are made. So maybe the fans should have this cancel culture power.
We should. I
also believe though, man. I really believe that everyone makes mistakes. Obviously, depending on how big these mistakes are, like you can't like try and really kill a few people and be like ask people for.
No, I agree with Ishan in that.
There's definitely like a rehabilitation process, like you were saying earlier on. Like what is the point of things like that? Like everyone's a human. Everyone makes mistakes. Like everyone's out here on their journey, man. We're just out here growing. If someone made a comment, like if the baby meant those comments, or if he didn't, only he knows, right? But let's say he had some time to reflect and be like, okay, maybe I shouldn't have fucking said that. Maybe that there's growth here, and look, he's still young. Loads of people are still young. People can come back from their mistakes, man. I believe that people make mistakes and people like can grow, and people should the fans should understand that those celebrities, they're just like you. They're just humans. They're not actually there on a pedestal. Like you meet Michael Jackson or Drake or whoever you want to say in reality, and they breathe the same air as you do. That there's nothing more superior than them than you.
If Drake was in this room right now, I'd love to see you. You would be treating him like he's the most superior being to ever exist.
Okay, generally speaking, with cancel culture, it kind of gets a lot of bad press because people think, you have to be politically correct. That word's become toxic now. Political correct.
Mate, I know people that are in the industry and they won't share their views because they're scared of what people will think. And you have to think that cancel culture has come with all those implications.
Kevin Hart did his recent, a Netflix documentary. He did it. He released it just from his living room. He released it, I think, 2020 last year during COVID. And in that show, you could see him. He was like, I'm thinking about whether I should say this. I'm gonna have people standing outside my house with cancel culture sign, cancel Kevin Hart.
No, but is that not a good thing though?
No, but comedians have always trodden on that fine line between jokes and sensitive topics. Comedians have always done that, and that's kind of why we love it, because they say the thing.
That was a lot with Dave Chappelle, right? That happened.
Exactly. They say the things that we think, but we're not allowed to say. Yeah, straight up. Like some of the best jokes happen to be borderline racist. Like if you look at like Russell Peters or even some of the YouTubers we watched growing up, like Just Rain, aka Amazing.
Yeah.
If someone that wasn't brown said those, it'd be racist. But they were allowed to play on it just because.
But I think with Just Rain, there were a few things that if somebody else outside our culture saw them, they would think, "Oh, that's fucked."
I know, but how many times have you seen that? What's it called, Live at the Apollo, and you've got the Asian person come on and they'd be like, "Don't worry, I'm not going to blow the place up." Do you know what I mean? Those sorts of jokes.
We find that funny.
Everyone in the crowd would be laughing.
Yeah, but those kind of jokes are outdated. But I think they were just trying to make. As a comedian, right? Yeah, when you're doing stand up, you have to. I think with Kevin Hart and all those big names and stuff, you draw comedy from your life, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what happens in your life and stuff, and you turn that into a comedy. So I think with those people, Asians making jokes about Asians and stuff, like Russell Peters was always joking about Indian accents, or people have this thing about joking about their parents and stuff, like how strict it is and stuff. Even now, you can probably just tell what's his other name, man? Paul Chowdhury, for example. You can almost second guess their jokes because you know what they're going to be about. It's going to be based on their lives, which is kind of similar to ours, right? Yeah, that's different. But if you're offending somebody, like, okay, yeah, I think comedians, okay.
But is it becoming easier to offend somebody?
It is easier to offend.
It is becoming easier to offend someone. That's the same reason Hank Azaria had to fucking apologize for playing a poo, bro.
P.S. If you haven't seen that episode, you know what? It's a good one. Go check it out.
In the comments.
No, but like it's becoming easy. Okay, I'll give you an example right here, and this is something that's happened in India, right? So a few years back, there was this. You know how in America they have that roast where they like have one person in the roast.
Like Justin Bieber had a roast and all the celebrities attacked him.
So India did one, and this was I think in 2013. I was at uni at that time, and it was like a huge thing where like Ranveer Singh and Arjun Kapoor. The two huge actors, right? Obviously with Ranveer Singh. So there was this comedy group called AIB, and they were kicking off. They were huge back at that point. That was at the peak, right? And they were this comedy group doing things differently, being more socially active, like on YouTube and stuff, and on social media. And they hosted this roast of Ranveer Singh and Arjun Kapoor, and they brought in loads of other different actors and stuff. All the people from the industry were in the audience, and they were Karan Johar, right? So he was hosting it, and they were acknowledging that Karan Johar is gay, for example, right? And they were making a joke of it, but Karan Johar was going along with it. That's fine. But I guess they were pushing a lot of boundaries. They were cracking jokes that people hadn't heard. So people were genuinely offended after that, right? But I thought it was calm. But what I didn't think was there was a few people of darker complexions within the hosts and stuff. And a lot of the other people, literally when it came to roasting that particular person, they just joked about their colour, for example. Or they'd be saying, oh, he's so black, so and so and so.
No, that's a big thing,
So there needs to be a line within comedy.
Being that Eurocentric, fair skin is more sort of, appealing and all of that. That is an issue.
Yeah, but so there needs to
that's been highlighted recently.
I get
more.
That's what I mean. So I get comedy needs to be left alone, and comedy needs to just we just need to let it happen and not get offended. But there are certain lines that even within comedy that you cannot cross.
Point taken.
When this is an interesting topic, interesting question I'm going to ask. I don't even know if you guys know the answer to it, but what was the first incident that started cancel culture?
I'm going to Google it right now.
I don't think there
must have been some turning point where someone needs to get cancelled. You know
what? It happened in the last few years with the Me Too movement. I think was probably what really kicked it off.
Because I don't know, man. It feels like we've just spoken a lot about comedy and comedians. You just said it's okay for maybe comedians need to be left alone. All this shit. Why are we so fucking worried about offending someone? I mean,
no. Look, it's fine. Do you
think we're from a snowflake generation, bro?
No. Okay, you think it's okay to offend somebody?
I never said that.
No.
I never said that.
Okay. You're saying why are we afraid of offending someone so badly? Yeah. Okay. Why is that? It's all good and fun. When you're not the victim in that.
Yeah.
What if you're the offended? Yeah. If somebody came out and did a comedy set now on Indian people or
cancel culture came into the collective consciousness around 2017 after the idea of cancelling celebrities for problematic actions or statements became popular.
Yeah.
So 2017 is where it started.
I mean, it started then, but it was always
the roots are in the early 2010s. Tumblr blogs, etc. And then when Instagram and social media kicked off after 2010.
Yeah.
So it's become Twitter, etc. It's become easier.
Do you guys remember that actor? Well, I don't know if you remember. Mel Gibson, right?
Yeah.
He's a huge anti-Semite, isn't he? And he was actually, he lost a lot of work because of that too. So in the last few years, he was only making films that people he trusted. He wasn't getting films and work and stuff. He was still doing amazing work, right? Yeah. But he was kind of cancelled, and I think that was in the 2000s actually. So even prior to that as well.
I feel like cancel culture has killed freedom of speach.
Nah,
I think it has.
Look,
I really think it has.
I'm gonna go back to the point.
I'm not out here saying that I'm out here with some diverse views, because I really don't. But man, look at the people celebrities and everything. They probably have strong views about some things, and they just legit can't say what they feel. And now I feel I don't know. I just feel it's called freedom of speech.
Freedom of speech is extremely important, but you have to realize,
no one in Speaker's Corner, bro. No one in Speaker's Corner in Hyde Park is afraid of being cancelled.
No. Look, freedom of speech, right? Yeah, people think of it's my right, but people don't realize freedom of speech is not absolute. For example, right? Yeah, And with freedom of speech comes a certain responsibility that people don't wish to accept, for example.
Yeah, I
you know
hear
what I mean? So when it comes to what you want to say, you want to be able to say it, right? But you're not thinking about how whatever you could say could actually endanger the other person, right? I don't know, like if you're saying something slanderous against one person, for example, what about the right to privacy and something like that? Not even just that, but if you're saying whatever you want to say, what about what about the impact it has on other people? For example, you've got
it depends how it's delivered, where it is, what the context is.
So you've got people who will deny the
someone.
Holocaust, for example, right? Yeah. How do you think Jewish people would feel about that? Like, if you were Jewish, would you want to hear somebody deny the Holocaust, for example?
No, I hear that.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think with freedom of speech, it's not absolute. It comes with certain rights. With certain responsibilities.
But,
and I think it's always easy to overlook that as long as it's your right, your right to freedom of speech. People forget to recognize.
People can choose not to listen to that arsehole without cancelling them.
No, not really. I mean, how you can look at. It's not as easy as that, man. There are a lot of conspiracy theories and stuff, right? Yeah, it always reaches you, for example, and I think people do need to be kind of reined in a little bit. You can't have absolute freedom of speech and you're going around offending every single person. It could be going around. You're going around on the streets, shouting the F word or the N word, off the top of your lungs and stuff. Would you allow?
I think there's a balance. There's a need for cancel culture, but at the same time, you don't want to see the comments comments on a celebrity's Instagram post. Oh, he's wearing Carhartt. Cancelled.
What are you trying to say about my clothes, bro?
Do you know what I mean?
No, I get that.
Because it does go too far too.
I definitely think so. But I think
there's
everything's
about
balance.
It's a balance.
Okay, no, I get there is a balance, but I think people sometimes look at it too negatively. Like if somebody wants, and again, it pisses me off sometimes, when people you say something and people oh, why are you so fucking politically correct, bruv? Why are you being so diplomatic? Or
obviously, we know you're
I was just
Mr. Politics. So.
No, but
so I can imagine you've had a few conversations like that. But
it just annoys me, man. Why can't we strive to do the right thing? I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm not saying I
know you're not perfect,
right? I have a certain set of principles, and you know what? I never stick to them, but I try to.
Yeah,
right?
you're a hypocrite.
I'm a hypocrite. We've had this running.
I've got you on video confirming. I'm a hypocrite.
No, but you have to try and live up to the principles you set yourself. Okay, yeah, and it's hard to do it sometimes, and I get that, but that doesn't mean you completely abandon them, right? So that's my point. So
I think that's a beautiful note to end this podcast on. I think you've both been great. You've offered some great views. Let us know
cancel
in the
Ronaldo.
Let us know in the comments what you think. Especially these celebrities. Maybe the Ronaldo thing isn't talked of enough. Should we be talking about it? Is cancel culture good? Let us know in the comments.